If you were talking with somebody that you really hated right in the moment, would you let all of the negative things come out? Or if you were just talking with somebody that is your best friend, but you know there's something wrong with him or something that you don't like about him, would you go and say that directly to them? You might be blunt in the moment to them, but what about you take that, you put it in a vacuum, and you're kind of just like every single negative thought that you have, or something that's bad, or any thought that you have that could be seen as immoral, grave, something just extremely bad that other people wouldn't take a liking to, would you be able to say it? Well, most of us would probably say no, and we keep a lot of those things to ourselves. And that's kind of like what I want to talk about today. Why is it that we can't really say those things out loud, and what does that mean for, I guess, our generation? Because it has a lot of impacts on authenticity, in particular for Jinzy. So let's talk about it, and I'll give Bora, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, as an example here. So let's go to this one. So, the censored void. What do I mean by this censored void? So, we often self censor a lot of the opinions or ideas or just statements in general that we have. For example, there's like in the US, there's a very big, like, sort of political divide, right? You have the Democrats and then you have the Republicans. And at least at university campuses where these are kind of like put into a very big box space, kind of duke it out and you start battling amongst one another because that's just kind of how university campuses are. In any case, each party will say what they want to be said, and they'll let it be known. But sometimes there will be some self-censor depending on the standing of the university and the climate of the environment. But politics basically is a good example of when opinions can a lot of the time be weakened or they could just not said because you're scared that maybe your friend is a Democrat and you are a Republican for whatever reason, and you're scared that you might they might not want to be friends with you anymore if you say something, right? So it's kind of thinking but not doing and acting upon it, and that's kind of like a trend that has taken place within the last couple of years within like the whole cancel culture thing. It's like there are people online that are like, oh, if you have this belief, I don't want to be friends with you. That's it, right? And so there's kind of this instinct that we have to be socially valid amongst other people, and this is a phenomenon through time, like history, time and time again, is that we want to be socially valid amongst other people, and especially on social media and stuff, right? So we will think but not do. Basically, we won't say any of the things that could potentially jeopardize our social standing with other people, right? And that's just the innate nature of people, right? So an example that I want to give is Bora. I love Bora. This movie is so funny. The people were in the country where it was filmed, maybe they don't have the best, I guess, standing on the movie, but I think, from my perspective, it's a really good explanation for this video. So, uh, the main premise is that Bora is this guy who doesn't have basically any social awareness. He doesn't think that anything that he does is really sort of like harmful. A lot of the things from like the back end of the movie perspective is intentional, but it is supposed to be a film that basically commentates on this guy who goes to America for the first time and he doesn't know all the rules and mannerisms that usually happen, and it kind of plays it towards like a lot of these racist, sexism jokes, or a lot of the times just not doing things correctly because he doesn't know any better. And so he kind of puts people in a very, he makes them very uncomfortable with this situation. And so that discomfort makes people recognize that this might possibly be a joke. It's kind of like, this camera crew is recording him going out and doing these things, and these are intentional from the movie perspective, but unintentional in the action, like sort of moment of the scene, right? And so people are just like, oh my god, this guy, he might not know any better and try to deal with it. For example, I think there was a scene where he he brings a prostitute to the dinner, and he wasn't allowed to bring a guest, and this person is acting all wacky or something like that, and the people just had it and they kicked them both out, and that's just like an example, right? So when you are put into a very uncomfortable sort of situation, and you have to deal with it when somebody is acting as if they do not know any better, you might get a little bit out of hand and just put your foot down and just be like, all right, I have enough of this. I'm going to say what I need to say. And so that's basically what happens through the entire movie. And so that's kind of like a distinguishing thing that I want to make here, is that we have sort of a public and private identity, right? We have this public identity, this forward-facing one that we show to the world on social media, and we know that this is what people believe, and this is the image that people have of us. And then there's also the private identity, which is maybe, close friends or just to ourselves, right? These are the things that we know about ourselves that maybe we would not dare share with other people, right? And so that's kind of like the distinguishing factor about the movie. And so this kind of like puts people accountable for their harmful beliefs, which is like a positive and a negative thing, right? Depending on what side you are on. For example, I could go back to like the politics thing again, right? If I have let's say I'm a Democrat and I have this sort of belief, but this sort of belief even among the Democrats is some sort of like harmful thing, and the Republicans are like, oh, that's also harmful. We're gonna outcast you because what the hell are you talking about, right? And so that's an example of being held accountable for this sort of harmful belief that society does not believe to be correct. And so, yeah, it's kind of like what I want to touch on. Bora, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Pretty good movie. Love it. Now, this is more about social media, and this is about Jinzy in particular that I thought was interesting that I noticed is that we're obsessed, I say because I'm in Gen Z, we're obsessed with authenticity, right? This sort of thing where we speak to a camera, you'll see the videos, speak to a camera and say, I don't know what the hell is going on with my life. I am $40,000 in debt. I am in Bali. I am working on a beach, but I'm still having the time of my life. But then there's like those other videos where it's just like, these are 10 things that guys need to do or you will fail at life, right? And so it's kind of like this masculinity, this authenticity is kind of like we are obsessed with this sort of idea that everything needs to be perfect, but at the same time it also needs to be authentic in a way where it keeps things real enough that we are okay with our situation. And so I think this is not really true honesty. This is just more of like performatism, like being performative, that whole sort of trend, right? It's an aesthetic, right? We want people to make us feel comfortable, but at the same time have the sort of like roughness around the edges, around the troops or whatever we think of life to be, right? And so these are basically unstable thoughts which are measured basically as a social risk. What do I mean by that? If somebody says these are 10 things that you have to do or you're going to fail in life, you'll probably take that maybe a little bit more literally than somebody who says they explain their life circumstances and it might look bad, but in reality it's pretty good for them right now. And so they're just either wanting pity or they're just trying to be authentic in the situation. Another example is like people who say who are like in their late 20s or something and they're doing pretty well and they're like trying to give you tips about life and everything like that. I don't think somebody in their late 30s really has that much advice for somebody that is in like their teens or anything like that. I would much rather listen to somebody who's 50, 60, something like that. So it's really just about giving bullshit advice 90% of the time. But I will say personally, some of the quotes and stuff from like tech leaders and stuff like that who are in their 50s or 60s is a lot more useful than the so-called influencers, right? So yeah, that's what I want to talk about with that. Very niche example. This came to my mind. I don't know why, but I watched a documentary on Ted Kaczynski recently, so that's probably why. So this guy right here, very interesting looking person. Anyways, he's also known as the Unabomber. He basically sent out packages to people that would harm the environment or tech firms and stuff because he wanted to basically keep tech from ruining the environment or stuff like that. That doesn't matter. In any case, he was a very malicious person that would send bombs to people. And so because he had this belief that he wanted to uphold so badly, he turned it into harm because that's the only way that he could sort of inflict his emotion and inflict this sort of speech because nobody would listen to him. And so he like wrote this manifesto over here, right? And so that social suppression basically isolated him. So he was in like a very isolated place, Nebraska or something like that. He bought some land and he would ship out these sort of bombs from there, right? And he was so scared of this social suppression, obviously because he's doing something malicious and all this cancel culture. I mean, that wasn't really a big thing at the time, but yeah, he could. It's not something that you could just go home to your brother and just be like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna ship out a bomb to the leader of Intel or something like that, right? So yeah, definitely very misinformed about how to go about things, I think, personally. But yeah, he spoke his ideas in silence, and that's why he wrote the book. But the main thing here is that this censored void, since we are always self-censored from like before we actually speak them, he just took it in a way that, oh, I'm going to send my actions or my words as actions in another way. So it's kind of like some things that you can't say, but they're controversial in terms of the morality of them anyway. So I might as well do some action that mimics what I would say, verbally to you. Let's say I said, I think sticking a pencil up your nose is okay, but I'm obviously not going to tell you that. So I'm just going to do it instead, right? Either or is probably like pretty bad, right? Probably it would hurt a bit more for you if I stick a pencil up your nose, right? But the point is that saying it or doing it would yield the same effect, so might as well do one or the other. In this case, probably not trying to get caught sending these sort of packages to people, so he's just going to send the packages to people in an isolated way. But yeah, the point is social, I guess, like suppression of somebody in some sort of way will usually yield to very bad results, or just like a detrimental effect on your presence on social media in this case. I guess like in our more performative, authentic example. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's kind of like another example that I want to give. But yeah, go check out Bora. This is the video topic for today. Please leave a like. Go check out the Discord, I guess, in the link in the description, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.